I understand Momonosuke gets aged up by Shinobu in the manga, but in my story he doesn't. I also just realized that I got the timings of events wrong. Please bear with me and enjoy the story. Come in, came a familiar, adorable voice from the other side of the door. Nami took a deep breath in and out, then opened the door and walked in. At the work desk on the far side of the doctor's office, she saw the back of a minuscule blue bomber hat-wearing humanoid reindeer, not a tanuki raccoon dog, sat on a stool while poring over medical charts. Oh hi Nami, Chopper said turning to face her with a smile, which fell slightly when he saw the look on her face. She didn't know if it was to do with enhanced animal senses or being a really good doctor, but she was impressed and slightly worried how quickly he could tell something was wrong. Nami shut the office door behind her and looked into his soft onyx eyes. Chopper, there's something I have to tell you, something personal. She found herself suddenly unable to meet his gaze, her eyes prickling. Nami, anything you tell me in this office is strictly confidential. I'll help you in any way I can. Nami took another deep breath in and out, and told him everything about what happened that night, her current routines and her present anxieties. Throughout, Chopper didn't visibly react but listened patiently. When she had finished, he hopped off his stool and walked or trotted to one of his filing cabinets, from which he retrieved a small glass beaker with a lid. He then plodded over to her and held the beaker up to her. Before we can proceed with a test, I'll need to collect a sample from you. She knew exactly what sample he meant and couldn't help a tiny blush to her cheeks. Nevertheless, she accepted the beaker and, excusing herself, made her way to the ship's restroom. On the journey there, Nami reflected on the past weeks and how she let it come to this. About 2.5 weeks earlier, it was finally over. Kaido was done. Done for good. The Ninja Pirate Mink Samurai Alliance had finally pulled through, thanks especially to one Mugiwara Luffy. That is him along with his friends in the 4,000-strong rebellion, and the two other stars of the revolt, the Kazuki heir Momonosuke, and Kaido's own son Yamato, who had inevitably cut allegiances with his father and old allies. Actually, Kinemon and his Akazaya 9 had helped significantly reopening Kaido's old wound. Then with Momo holding back Kaido in dragon form using his own newly mastered abilities, no small feat for a much smaller dragon, Yamato shattering scaly armor with his Thunder Bagua, and Luffy delivering the final blow with his own newly mastered command of Ryu, the Wano people's word for hockey imbued into a Gomu Gomu no King Kong gun, the Overlord defeat was inevitable. His main subordinates Jack, King, Queen and the Toby Roppo soon fell with not only the combined efforts of Trafalgar Law's crew and the Minks, but also the Mugiwara fleet 5,600 strong, and a few key members of the Revolutionary Army that had come largely to aid Luffy. Before long, the remaining forces of the Beast Pirates, following their leader's defeat, had surrendered or been captured. All the citizens across Wano too, inspired by the stoicism and bravery of Boss Hyagoro and the persistence of the 3 stars of the rebellion, and perhaps feeling guilty for years of complacency under Kaido's reign, were all too happy to help with rebuilding. And with the unique nature abilities of Leo and his friends of the Tontata tribe who had accompanied the Mugiwara fleet, all the hazardous chemicals in the rivers, forests and crops were effectively gone within a week. It was a strenuous week for Chopper too, assisting the kingdom's physicians in providing vaccines for everyone still suffering poisoning after years of eating contaminated food. Yet as the country's health, well-being, and economy finally seemed all but assured, next came the matter of governance, who would become the next daimyo. Many understandably assumed the role would go by inheritance straight to Momonosuke. Momo seemed to have other ideas. By the end of the second week after Kaido's fall, Momo announced before his court, and his closest friends, his acknowledgement of his little sister, now his older sister of 26, Hiyori, as the new daimyo of Wano. Though no one openly objected, some were surprised and others slightly embarrassed by Hiyori's conditions for accepting the role. 1. Momonosuke continued to stand by his sister as one of her retainers. 2. Momonosuke, when he came of age, took their friend Otama as his wife. The following scene of arguing, calling each other butt face, and the older woman drop kicking the young boy in the face was hilarious and not remotely dignified. Some might have noticed Momo never actually said he didn't want to marry Otama, though that may mostly have been because he was still recovering from the war, and his face being drop kicked. Nevertheless, by the end of that day, it was unanimously decided that Kazuki Hiyori, the daughter of the late Kazuki Oden and his wife Toki, would become 43rd daimyo of Wano a random number I came up with, the first woman ruler in the country's recorded history. And with that, they finally had the promised banquet to celebrate the naming of a new shogun, and the beginning of a whole new era, a 2.5-week-long party that encompassed the flower capital in all regions of Wano, rich and poor alike. Thus begun the most emotionally charged and frightening 2.5 weeks of Nami's life. Where stories live. Discover now.